During Russell Laffitte's sentence hearing, Eric Bland, there to support his clients, the Plyler sisters, mentioned that Laffitte had used some of the money he stole from his clients to build a pool. So I named this episode, A Pool Filled with Tears, because it was built on people's tears. And now it's Laffitte crying, since the home with the pool was sold, and the proceeds are now being held in escrow to help pay restitution to those victims, who hopefully will now be able to cry happy tears, and perhaps get pools of their own. I've got the orders and judgment document for Laffitte's sentencing, and that's what I'm sharing with you today. So pour your drink, pop your popcorn, or just chill while I share today's victorious episode, dedicated in memory of Hakeem Pinckney, Donna Badger, and Angela and Justin Plyler. Let's get started. Hi everyone, this is Legal Updates with Kassidy O'Connell. Welcome. We're going to review 3 documents today. Document number 314, which is an order, number 315, the preliminary order of forfeiture, and number 316, the judgment. We'll start with number 314, the order. First, it outlined the amount of restitution owed, which is $3,555,884.80. In order to secure this restitution amount, the government moved for the court to stop Laffitte from transferring or disposing of certain assets without authorization of the court. And these assets are 1. Stock in Bank of America, 2. Stock in Palmetto State Bank, 3. An escrow account that's derived from the sale of that home that I mentioned in the intro, 300 Forest Drive, Barnville, South Carolina. This home was sold on June 30th, 2022 for $510,000. Here's just a few of the pictures from the real estate listing. It's described as a stunning home featuring 5 bedrooms, 4 full baths, and 2 half baths. Formal or casual living master suites up and downstairs, plenty of storage, and a secret children's playroom. Sunroom off family room overlooks heated pool and large play area with bricked fenced yard. Home has crown and dental molding. Crawl space is encapsulated with a dehumidifier. Adjacent included 1.5 acre property includes children's treehouse. Large open metal shed to store toys or host covered events and shipping container for storage. Ideal for a large family. Number 4, South State Bank 401k IRAs. Number 5, defendant's interest in the Laffitte Family Partnership. And it references the document, the pre-sentence report, but this is a sealed document, so we can't see it. And then it goes on to say defense does not oppose, and in fact, the state court had already issued an order prohibiting the disposition of these assets, so they didn't have access to these anyway. And then it kind of repeats, but the difference is the first paragraph was the government moving for these actions. The final paragraph is the court actually ordering it so, and says it's prepared to address any disputes regarding these assets that the parties are not able to resolve. Just so you know how this works, this doesn't come as a surprise to the defendant, but these are proposed back in the indictments. So for example, this one is page 17 of his second indictment that was filed on September 20th, 2022. So it's not just sprung on at the last second, but also it's asked early on in the indictment so that it protects the assets from being sold or given away before a guilty verdict can come in. So it's there as a protection for both prosecution and defense. Now we're going to jump in to number 316. This is the actual judgment, but it includes and relies on number 315, which is the preliminary order of forfeiture. And how this works is as soon as possible after a guilty plea or a guilty verdict, the court determines which properties will be subject to forfeiture. Restitution owed will be weighed against assets in this determination. So in this case, we've just read what those assets will be. And then this authorizes the government to seize the assets, and the preliminary order becomes final at sentencing unless there are third-party interests that would need to be worked out after. So for example, if there's a lien on some of this property, that means a third party has an interest in it, so that would need to be worked out before it can be actually finalized. So the judgment starts off with Laffitte being found guilty after pleading not guilty and lists the counts that he was found guilty of. And this is why we need document 315, because it shows us what these counts are. I will be making a video going over Laffitte's indictment because, as Judge Gergel said at the sentencing hearing, Alex couldn't have done what he did without Laffitte. And I think it's a shame that more attention hasn't been given to Laffitte. It seems to all be the focus entirely on Alex. Laffitte's court hearings are not televised, so not everyone is aware even of Russell Laffitte or his involvement, his key role in this whole mess. So that's why I really want to go through his indictment to show all of his involvement in the process, from start to finish. The next section says, the defendant is sentenced as provided in pages 2 through 6 of this judgment. The sentence is imposed pursuant to the Sentencing Reform Act of 1984, and then they click the box, remaining counts of indictment and superseding indictment are dismissed on the motion of the United States. But in his case, there were only 6 counts, and he was found guilty on all of them, so there are no remaining counts to be dismissed. But one thing to keep in mind when you go through this is kind of a fill-in form. So not everything on this form actually will apply to him. For every person found guilty, they use this judgment form. The next section says his imprisonment will be for a total of 84 months, and that this sentence shall run concurrent to any anticipated state court sentence for this same offense. The defendant shall pay $600 special assignment fee and restitution in the amount of $3,555,884.80, both due beginning immediately. So, depending on the sentence he receives from the state, because he still has a state trial to go through, if it's shorter or the same, he will not spend any time beyond this. Should it somehow be longer, I believe he will be transferred to a state facility to serve out any excess time. Next, the court gives recommendations for the facility. It says the defendant shall be designated to FCI Jessup to facilitate family visitation and shall be screened for participation in the BOP Residential Drug Abuse Program, the RDAP. I saw a lot of questions people had about this bit about the drug abuse program. Remember again, this is a general form for all prisoners, and it very well could be something that most go through because it simply says he should be screened for. It doesn't say he requires it. So it may just be a usual thing that they do. There may be some reason behind it. I wouldn't read too much into that because nowhere in any documents have I seen anything about him being involved in drug abuse. It also doesn't give a date of when he'll actually have to surrender himself, but it says he'll be notified by a U.S. Marshal. So that date is still pending. Now, once he finishes his term, he was also given a 5-year supervised release. And this part confused a lot of people, thinking that he wouldn't have to pay anything, and then once he finished his prison term, then he would start paying only $2,000 a month. But it says here clearly, you must pay any remaining unpaid restitution balance set up on these payments. But he was ordered to actually pay this immediately, and it was mentioned that he had enough assets to be able to do this. Unless there's some third-party claim to those assets that's unknown to the court at the time that would cause those full funds not to be paid. And if that were the case, then after his imprisonment, he would begin these $2,000 a month payments. But he was ordered to pay this immediately. Next, we have the mandatory conditions. I'm not going to read much into these because these are pretty general rules meant for every prisoner. Basically, he must not commit another crime, he must not possess a controlled substance, or use any controlled substance. He has to take a drug test within 15 days of release and at least 2 periodic drug tests thereafter. He has to make restitution, and he has to cooperate in the collection of DNA. Again, all standard, not specific to him. Also the same with these conditions of supervision. They are standard, they're not specific to him, they are for every prisoner. We see his monetary penalties again. Up to now, they've just given the full amount, but here we see a slight breakdown. $1,207,016.14 goes to the Parker Law Group, PMPED, attention to Ronnie Crosby, and the remaining balance goes to Palmetto State Bank. Both this law firm and the bank have had to make restitution to the clients, so this is now paying those people back. Then again, we see under the schedule of payments, because the court determined he had the assets to pay it immediately, he is asked to pay this a lump sum payment. It's both the amount that he owes, the over $3.5 million, also a special assessment fee of $600. And then if somehow it's not paid in full, which isn't likely, again mentions these monthly installments of $2,000 after his imprisonment's over. Next, it attaches the preliminary order, which helped us see the counts that he was found guilty of. Then it goes into the general legal explanation of the order. with one important note that, as I mentioned before, now that he's been sentenced, this preliminary order becomes the final order, and so it is now final. We see this in point 6. Upon entry of the criminal judgment, this order becomes final as to defendant, and shall be made part of the sentence and included in the criminal judgment. It was filed separately as the preliminary. Now that he has completed sentencing, it becomes part of the judgment, and it is now no longer preliminary, but final order. And then this is an accounting for his restitution amount in a little more detail, according to the crimes committed. And I'm not going to cover that now because I want to cover that in greater detail in the Russell Laffitte indictment video. That's coming soon. And this brings us to an end of these 3 very fine documents. May the justice served here bring peace to the victims who have long suffered under the cruel choices made by not just Alex, but his co-conspirator, Russell Laffitte, without whom he simply could not have carried this out. So keep an eye out for that indictment video. And until then, this is Kassidy O'Connell saying stay well and stay tuned.